This is Ryan Elliott for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. I'd like to be joined by Dave Coldwell. Dave, nice to see you at the fight on Saturday. First and foremost, though, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks, mate. I yourself saw you briefly.
Yeah. So briefly, it was nice. A great night of action. I'm well, thank you. Just to come on to the fight itself, Josh Warrington looked like he was going to have Kiko Martinez gone in the first round. Kiko showed his grit and his heart. 7th round TKO victory for Josh Warrington. Just your reaction to the fight, Dave.
I thought it was a brilliant fight, and I thought Josh Warrington completely surprised me in the way that he went about the fight. I thought it was going to be one of those where each round is hard fought, but Warrington would always have the edge on each round, just staying one step in front of him, using his boxing, using his angles and his speed. I certainly didn't expect him to go head to head and bang it out with Kiko Martinez. And it provided us with a brilliant night, with a brilliant atmosphere as well.
I spoke to Sean O'Hagan after the fight, and I said to him, how much emphasis and importance had you put on a fast start like that? Because Josh came out the traps absolutely flying. And he said 0. We hadn't planned for that. What do you think was going through Josh's head when he decided to completely change and go for it like that?
So, sometimes when a fighter gets cut early in first round, the fighter that gets cut, the game plan can go straight out the window. Sometimes the fighter that's not cut and he sees that man that's cut there, he may trigger there and think, right, I can do this, get this over in quick time, or just see missed himself. And it was kind of like that because it was a head clash. Kiko starts bleeding. You see Kiko complain, and Josh really just jumps on him straight away. And it might have been the fact that Kiko signaled to the ref and showed his discomfort at it, which is understandable. But when fighters do that, sometimes it's like a red rag to a bull. I think that might have been the trigger to Josh.
Let's come on to the head clashes. There's a lot of people talking about that and talk about Josh's use of the head in that fight, and we saw Kiko's face afterwards. I spoke to Darren Barker afterwards, and he said from where he was, he doesn't actually think it was intentional. He just thinks it was the way maybe they were leaning in, coming together. What do you make of it?
Listen, on that shot, I mean, to be honest, I haven't watched the fight back. Obviously, I saw it live, and then I watched it on the monitor, on the screen, big screen at ringside. It looked like Josh has gone to throw a punch, and as he's gone to throw another punch, just his style, it does go in with his head. I'm not saying he's intentionally trying to butt you, or he's intentionally trying to cut you, but the way that he throws his shots when he's at that range, then you have to watch his head. Some fighters are like that. Evander Holyfield used to be great at that, where he's not intentionally trying to butt you as such, but he'll throw himself in a style and in a certain shape where head clashes are inevitable. And Josh Warrington is one of those. I mean, it's not just this fight; it's a few fights. So as a coach, if you're facing Josh Warrington, you have to kind of like prepare for that if you can. As a fighter, you have to expect that is going to happen. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't be pulled up, and the referees don't need to be keep an eye on that. But it's part of his style, and it's part of you look, there's a track record of it, so you're going to get that. And it's like sometimes when southpaw boxers orthodox, they're not intentionally doing it, but the way that they're falling into position, the way that they're throwing the shots, and the positioning of each fighter often leads to head clashes that way. So it's part of it, but it's when you're on the receiving end, it's not nice, and it's something that the receiving end want to have taken care of.
Just a word on Kiko Martinez. He was in all sorts of trouble in the first round, went back, second round, he was badly hurt again, then started to start finding his feet again. Incredible toughness on display from again. And if that is it for him after Saturday night, a fantastic career to be proud of as well.
Oh, listen, he's been an unbelievable servant for sport. And also, don't forget, this is a man that's well loved and well received over in the UK that's not from here. There's not many fighters, when you look at that, and when you look at the records, and they've got a lot of losses on the records. We're not talking about a superstar. We look at Lomachenko or something like that, Usyk, and they come over to this country and roll over him. You look at a guy that's had losses, if you go back years, losing against our guys, and because of what he gives in his fights, fans love him. Boxing people love him. Fans, if you watch Kiko Martinez, you know that he's always going to bring it. And every time we write him off, he's always resurrected himself. If that's his last fight, and to be fair, it could well be. It's all about what his hunger and determination is. If that's his last fight, then what a way to go out, because he gave everything. Like you said, he was hurt several times early though, but he seemed to adjust to the power. I think he got caught early. That flash knockdown again. The head clash, the bleeding, and then getting dropped in round one. That can completely, everything goes out of the window, and it may be a little bit too tense, a little bit too tight. Walk onto more shots, getting shook up. But then he found his feet and he started coming into it more. He was always catching. He was always in the fight. He was always catching Josh every so often with a little, just to remind him that he's in there. But as he say, as it looked like he was accustomed to the power, then all of a sudden, Josh, turns it up and finishes it. And then, obviously, I didn't know until way later, until the next morning, I think it was, that he broke his jaw. Mate, I can't explain to you, just as a coach, just as working with fighters, I watch what goes off in a gym day in, day out, and then I'm up close in a fight, and I see these shots landing, you hear shots landing, and it's brutal. But then to think that somebody's had a jaw broken and they're still in there, that's phenomenal. Because it's one thing breaking your hands and things like that, but the jaw, and then still getting punched on it, that's something that's next level. And every time you hear a fighter that's had a broken jaw, you still see him in there. It just shows you what these men are made of. And Josh didn't react. He didn't react. There was no way from where else. Like I said, I haven't watched it on the telly. I haven't watched it back yet. But from watching it live and from being sat ringside, I would never have known there was an issue. So he's had his jaw snapped and then just carried on and turned it up and then ended up stopping him. That just makes the win even better. The performance even better for me.
Leigh Wood was up on the ropes after the fight. The zone brought him in. He was very respectful and he said, "Listen, this is Josh's night. I'm going to let him enjoy it." Lots to talk about that fight, though. Josh is going to need a little break, as you mentioned, with the injuries. But is that the logical?
Yeah, I think both of them are going to have a good break, aren't they? But again, it just shows about Leigh Wood what his character is. He's a genuinely nice guy in the sport. It was his moment then where he could have created something, talking more. He could have gone out and really staked a claim for that fight. But he didn't. It was like, because he knows what it's like. He's worked through his career at his moment, and he knows what it's like when somebody tries to piss on your bonfire. And he was very respectful, just saying, this is Josh's night. But make no mistake about it, Leigh Wood wants that fight. That's a huge fight. It's a huge fight for this country. I think the WBA have got to sort out their situation because it's bullshit. Leigh should have been, that fight they had with Conlon should have been made. Santa Cruz should have been stripped, and that fight should have been made for the only WBA world title belt. I'm not interested in calling them supers and all this sort of shit. WBA world champion. That's what that fight should have been made for. And in my eyes, Leigh Wood is the WBA world champion because Santa Cruz hasn't boxed for about 3 years for it. How can you still be WBA world champion, super champion, or whatever you want to call it, when you haven't defended it, when you had no intention to defend it? You fought a weight above. Go away, do what you want to do, and if you want another, if he turns around and says I want to fight, then make the WBA should say, okay, Santa Cruz versus Leigh Wood, there you go. But get rid of these extra belts and all this bullshit. For me, is beat Kanzu, who was top 5 ranked featherweight, beat Michael Conlon, who a lot of people thought was going to beat him. Leigh, and he's a draw as well. He's a draw in the division as well now. So for me, Leigh should be recognised as a WBA champion, which should then allow him to unify it. Because right now, as we are right now, as a super champion, you can't unify. So it's a bit of bullshit. So that's another stumbling block to trying to make Warrington and Leigh Wood right now. The other one, of course, is where's the fight going to happen? Because I've got to give a lot of credit to the Leeds fan, and it's hard because I'm a Man United fan. And when I'm sat there and they're all singing "Stand Up If You're Eight Man U," I'm not very comfortable at that moment. But you've got to give Leeds fans the credit because a lot of fans, a lot of followings of boxers, when they're winning and they're on that crest of a wave, they're packing out arenas. And then when they get beat, it drops off. Now, Josh got beat bad, came back, had a rematch, didn't go. It was a technical draw, and it was, it wasn't great. It was only 2 rounds in, but it looked like it was going to be another rough fight. A lot of fans would have jumped off the bus then. He's fighting Kiko Martinez, who's yes, he's coming off a Galad win, but Josh has already beat 5 years ago. He's not a British fighter, so there's no banter back and forth to build the fight. I walked into that arena, and that arena was packed out, banged out. It was like as though Josh Warrington were at his peak. So the fans are 100% behind him. They're really good fans. They're really good fans he's got there. So would he want to give that up to go and box at the City Ground? I don't think so. I think the only way that he boxes without them in Leeds is he takes them over to America. I know that's his dream. When you get to that sort of standing in your career and you've done what Josh has done, then like Leigh has now, they're talking about the dreams. Leigh's not chasing the money. He wants the City Ground. And so you understand that. He wants to box at the City Ground. Josh wants to box at Ellen Road. Who's going to give way there? So I don't know if that fight gets made. And like I said, with the WBA thing, I don't know if that gets made next, especially, but I'm not sure if that gets made because somebody's going to have to give up on something big. So I'm not sure.
Do you think the only way they could maybe do that if both of them will want it in their respective home stadium is to maybe do some sort of half and half allocation?
I think it's the whole thing of Leeds and Nottingham. They're both very passionate about where they're from and the football teams that they support and the fans. So if Josh is going to box, again here, then I would imagine he would want Ellen Road. Leigh wants to box at City Ground. So who's gonna give it up? I mean, I think Leigh's got other options to box at the City Ground. There's a few fights out there for Leigh Wood. I think Leigh's now into that bracket now where in Nottingham he can sell the City Ground. A Conlan rematch, that would be absolutely huge, and that would be very, very realistic for the City Ground. Obviously, would like to see the Warrington fight, but I don't know. I don't think just listening to Josh in the ring and what I was on, he's never once had an inkling that he would be willing to go to Nottingham Forest. So I don't think that fight happens there, and it's then a case of would Leigh then go to Ellen Road?
I was speaking to Jordan Gill on Saturday, Dave, and it's something I want to ask you about. Jordan was kind of reminiscent. He was talking about the journey him and Leigh have been on. He was talking about the night that Leigh got beat by Gavin McDonnell and how the last two in the arena, and it was quite somber. And then they've sort of gone like up the way together. When you look back now and you see, we're talking about Leigh Wood in stadium fights and world title fights and unifications. Yeah. And Jordan as well having this rocky moment recently, it must give you this immense sense of pride. How do you kind of reflect on it?
Yeah. Oh, listen, I've managed Leigh for 3 years now, up to this fight with Conlan. The British, the Commonwealth, the British, and the world titles. To think about when he come and spoke to me, and Jordan when he came and spoke to me about where they were, how the career. Jordan wasn't going to box again if I didn't agree to train him and manage him. Talk about pressure. And Leigh was very unhappy and felt as though nothing was happening with his career. So when you fast forward, Leigh's won those titles, Jordan's won the Commonwealth, WA International, and then the European titles. I'm very, very proud. As a manager, that's a huge achievement for me. Obviously I've had in the past, Ryan Rose won a British and European title, fought Canelo as I was managing him. Then, Curtis Woodhouse is a British champion. They're big moments for me. But these two almost come as a pair because they're such close friends. And because of how the careers were, how they are now, I'm very, very proud of them both. I think it shows to every single fighter out there, whether they get off to an unbeaten start, they're promoted, or whether they fall off, out of favour with the promoters because they suffer a loss, or whether they start off on small holes, because these two kids did. And it shows you that keep believing, keep working hard, ignore all the doubters that say you can't do anything, You know, you get beat and people say that, oh, that's it, he's chinny, he's this, he can't take a shot, he's finished, he'll get found out, blah, blah. Keep going. Forget them all. Keep doing it, keep focusing on yourself and improving, and be willing to learn every day and living life. Do you know what? Living life right. Leigh Wood, Jordan Gill, they're poster boys for it because they look after themselves. Whether they've got a date or not, they're training. They're training all the time. You know, they're trying to improve all the time. And so when you live like that, you have a chance. You have a chance of making it, no matter what goes off before you. Everything that they've gone through is part of a process to where they've ended up today. You know, the story's not finished yet. You know, it's like I said to Jordan, you know, look at what the people around you have done and beforehand. You look at the rankings. Jordan's only 27. You know, he's 27. A lot of fighters don't hit the big fights. A lot of fighters that I've had success with didn't hit the big fights and the successes until they were in the 30s. You know, Leigh Wood's 32, 33 now, you know, and now his biggest nights are there. It's all part of a process. We're obsessed with this notion that you have to make it while you're young. And if a fighter doesn't make it while he's young, then, oh, well, you know, fighter loses the fight, so, oh, he's just a journeyman, he's just a gatekeeper. It's what's your desire, what are you willing to put on the line for it, and how hard are you willing to try and to keep going when it looks like it's stacked against you. You know, don't forget, it's only a couple of fights ago, Leigh Wood, he got beat by Jazza. You know, and it looked like, you know, in his head, he's thinking, what's going to happen now? Where am I going now? And then this game is, you've just got to be ready. You've got to be ready. You've got to be ready, and you've got to be willing to take the opportunities that come across yourself. You know, because I've had so many fighters where I pick up the phone and say, listen, you got an opportunity to fight so. Oh, I'll not make the weight. Or I've not been training. What? If you're always ticking over, if you're always in that gym and you're always trying to improve and you're living right, then you can always say yeah when an offer comes your way, and that puts you in a chance of pulling off something. That puts you in a position where you can change your life. That's what Leigh's done.
Dave, last thing I want to get your thoughts on before I let you go. Brook, after the Amir Khan fight, there was a lot of people saying, look, right off into the sunset, this is the perfect way to go out now. We're now hearing from Ben Shalom that it's likely Kel's going to fight on. We're hearing things like Chris Eubank Jr. at a catchweight, Danny Garcia apparently, and then eventually building for an Amir Khan rematch. Now we know he is going to fight on. What would you like to see him do?
Amir Khan rematch, no. Got no interest in that. Because I've got a lot of respect for both fighters, and I don't think Amir Khan. I don't think he should box again. I think he's had an amazing career, and I think just walk off into sunset. It was a brilliant fight, showed plenty of balls. Walk off into sunset. I'd like Kel to as well, to be honest, but looks like he's going to fight again. If he fights again, then as a fan, and trying to be completely neutral, because I'm a fan of both, but Ben versus Kel is just like crossroads, stages of career. Is he good enough? Is he fresh enough? Just so many different things in there. Conor Ben's got that power. He's got the speed and the sharpness. Kel looked great, but it was against Amir Khan. So can he do that with somebody that's sharp and fast like Conor Ben, or did that flatter him? You know, my problem is for Kel is that he lived so well for that fight. It was because he's chased that fight for 17 years or 15 years, whatever it is. Is he ever going to have a night that's going to bring him the same riches as what that fight did? No, because he's earned millions in the past. So money's money. That's not going to motivate him to train and live right and do everything that Dom asked him to do. Everything that his nutritionist Greg Marriott asked him to do. Everything. He's never going to live like that again for a fight. I know Kel, and I don't believe he will. So I don't believe anything will mean as much to him again. Everybody could turn around and say, I think Conor Ben will knock you out. And we're like, fuck yeah, I'm going to prove you wrong. But it wouldn't mean as much to him as what's happened for the last 15 or so years, where everyone say, oh, well, 50-50 are saying Amir Khan's going to knock you out. There's that personal thing there for so long. And I've seen Eubank Jr. saying that it's a bit personal between him and Kell, and they've had a spat before. But that's like, that don't compare. That don't compare. And if Kell's not at the top of his game for either of those two guys, they could beat him. Without a doubt. For either of those two guys, he has to be at the top. And can he be at the top of his game again at this stage in his career? I don't think so. I don't believe so. But then the question is what Kell's got left, is that enough to beat those two guys? That's the questions around that fight, those fights. That's why they're still massive fights, huge fights. I'm not saying that I won't want to watch either of them as a neutral, but they're huge fights. But as somebody that's been literally followed Kell's career from day one, is either of those fights a fight that I like to see Kell Brook in? No, because I see them as the promoter, either promoter using Kell Brook's name to project their next prospect or their star of their stable to bounce straight high, into next level. And I don't want somebody like Kell, who's gone through what he's gone through in his career and then finished on such a high, to then take away that finish and then be used as a name. Because you can't tell me that either promoter, whoever puts that fight, Eddie puts on Conor Benn against Kell, he's not there as a neutral, he's Conor Benn. So he's using Kell's name for Conor Benn, which is understandable and what he should be doing. That's I'm not knocking him, that's what he should be doing. And the same of Wasserman for Eubank Jr. They would be using Kell's name for Chris Eubank Jr. So I don't knock the promoters for doing it. That's your job. And if you're looking after your fighter, that's your job. I do it with my fighters, right? Who can we get now? He's a faded name. Use it block. That's what you do. But if you're on the other side of the coin, and I look at Kell and I would love him to walk away and finish, because I think that's the perfect ending to his story. But to be used as to lose to somebody who at your peak you would have beaten, that's harsh. That's harsh to finish on.
All right, Dave, thank you for your time, and as always for Seeking the Boxing Social. I'm sure we'll catch you very soon.
Cheers, mate. Nice one.